Hello and welcome to Coteries of New York. You may have noticed that the soundtrack is not quite what you would expect. I've just got some Spotify on in the background, just playing around with a few different things. For whatever reason, I have a particular add-on. It's called Amuse, and it is basically designed, it's a little widget that pops up at the top of the screen that's supposed to show you what the background music is at any point. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be working at the moment. Now, this that is playing right now is the music for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which is the classic 2002, 2004, early 2000s game that we all know and love and have been waiting for a long ass time for a sequel. And yeah, we might get into talking about all the drama and everything with Bloodlines 2 at a later date. Will I be playing it on here? That is a possibility. That is definitely a possibility. But anyway, I suppose one thing after another. Hello, my name is Dennis. Dirty Dan. Great pleasure to be back on the air. Apologies about the pop filter and everything. Just working on a new setup and everything. It's been a long time since we did this on a regular basis, and I've been trying really hard to make things work on a regular basis, trying to get a decent setup and all this, that, and the other. But I think we're now in a position where this might actually work. Of course, there's been one or two little technical hiccups. For those of you who saw the Call of Cthulhu Arkham Unveiled book review that I did pretty recently, that would be over on YouTube, actually, not on Twitch. This is the first time I've streamed on Twitch in about 6 months. It's been a while. But I've been doing a few test streams over on YouTube because, I mean, all the video file was going to get uploaded there anyway, so, you know, kind of made sense. And I wasn't really that too invested in building up a schedule of anything. It was more tech demos and, you know, trying to make sure all of the different systems were working. But no, right here, right now, everything is set up to where we can basically get back into doing things on Twitch properly, full-time. So, well, not full-time, obviously, you know. I work a full-time job. That's why we're starting now. But today is kind of a stress test. Not just in terms of my mental stress and also the hardware, but actually, yes, no, mainly my mental stress, because I've been up and running about since 3 o'clock this morning, mainly down to my beautiful dog, who basically when she's sleeping, she's on her side, and, you know, like they kind of like you know, they pretend they're running and all that, but they're doing it right up against a wall, and of course that wakes me up. I mean, I had to be up about an hour later anyway, but yeah, I have been doing a lot of things today, and I wanted to try, for those of you who are following me on Blue Sky now, you can see these socials over here in this corner of the screen. We have the up-to-date social medias to follow, Blue Sky and Twitter, which I'll be real with you, if I'm still on Twitter by the end of the year, it will be more out of a case of bone idleness rather than any support, I can assure you of that. Well, yeah, I suppose maybe in some regards, same with like Instagram, really, as you can see down here, these little icons. But yeah, YouTube, Twitch, and the Instagram, all under the Dennis illustration. The Twitter and the Blue Sky for Develop. But anyway, as I was trying to say, I recently did a post where I was talking about my hopes for a regular streaming schedule. And we basically came to the conclusion that we're probably going to try and run at least 3 streams a week. and they would be anything from 3 to 4 hour streams. Now today we are starting an hour later than planned. We were actually going to be starting an hour earlier, basically from 4 o'clock to 6, basically about 4 till maybe 8 o'clock, you know, Eastern Standard Time. Unfortunately, my beautiful wife got in touch with me and explained there was a little bit of a situation. Basically, I had to run and help save the life of a poor dying little hamster. Long the short of it is, you know, there's an associate of ours who we have a whole bunch of, like, you know, small furry pets and everything, and we had a bunch of you know, medicine saved up that we hadn't really used for some of ours, and I literally had to leap off the bus straight after work, come grab all the bits and pieces that we needed, then zip on the bus again in a different direction, then zip on the bus, come all the way back, do my usual routine, and so blah 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 blah. An hour later. Now, what does that have to do with Vampire? Absolutely fucking nothing. I just wanted to give you all a little bit of context for the chaos that my day has been so far. And now we're going to stream for at least 2 hours, hopefully 3. The intention was see if we can do 4 hours and all that, but depends how much, you know, we're vibing with this particular game. So Vampire the Masquerade, for those of you who have watched my previous streams and the previous recordings of a little game that we called The Masquerade, which was actually a V5 game. That was me running the tabletop game for a bunch of people over on Discord and everything, and we recorded that. That's all up on the YouTube channel under Delis Illustration. Yeah, I was still learning the system. There were a couple of especially when it came to combat and everything, I got a little confused, shall we say, but I had fun. I had fun with the game, honestly. It was yeah, it was unfortunately while I had, like all you know, storytellers or people who run RPGs, I had very lofty ideas about what it was going to be. Unfortunately, that kind of fell apart very early on. The main reason being scheduling, because literally just as I was starting that particular campaign, I was moving away from the part-time position which I had, and I was being put more into a full-time position, but unfortunately that was at nights, and so a full-time position at the place I work basically does not guarantee certain days off. There were a whole bunch of different issues to where I was not really able to get a consistent schedule, and so as a result that campaign kind of died before it really got a chance to begin, which is a shame because I think everyone was having a lot of fun with it. It was very different. I think that was actually the first time we were properly getting into a game system that wasn't D&D 5th edition. Because that particular gaming group I was with, we were playing a lot of D&D, like Curse of Strahd, you know, a bunch of homebrew campaigns as well, including one that I had made as well. So we'd been playing 5th edition for about 2 years, at least 2 to 3 years, before I was able to convince them to give Vampire a shot. I know we did like a one-shot, literally one shot of let me just delete the robot real quick. Is there any way of deleting the robots? Let's just mute that. No, let's just ignore that. I don't know, been a while since I streamed on Twitch, and we'll just ignore all the bots, the beep boop. But anyway, so it had been a while since we basically we'd done nothing but 5th edition D&D, and one other game system, which was Call of Cthulhu, which is a one-shot that I'd ran, and that was The Haunting, for those of you who are aware of that game. And while they enjoyed the exploration, they enjoyed the investigation, and they enjoyed the new vibe of the system. Unfortunately, when we tried to make it more D&D with like a top-down map and everything, that was where everything kind of fell apart. And so especially when we try to condense it all into just one session, it was... People say you can run The Haunting in one session, but I can confirm you probably shouldn't. You should actually allow for that game to a bit more room to breathe. There's a lot of really good stuff you can do with it, but you know, this was before some of the other books like Doors to Darkness and other introductory scenarios were available to pick up. And I was just a babby. I was still learning how to be a keeper of arcane lore. But yeah, we had been trying to do different systems for quite a while. And I really enjoyed the brief run of episodes that we did for V5 Vampire the Masquerade. And hopefully, if all goes well with the new system and the new routine and everything, it is my intention, and we all know what the road to hell is paved with, it is my intention to be doing one of two things. I'm either going to be streaming... I don't know how it's coming through on the audio, and please do tell me if the audio is working out or not. Just turn it down a teeny bit on this end. But basically, yes. It is my intention to be streaming or playing on startplaying.games a second campaign, because what I do at the moment now is Tuesdays is when I get to play Call of Cthulhu 7th edition on startplaying.games, and that's usually a 3 o'clock to 6 or 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time game. And that's all dependent on my regular day job. They're very good. They've been working with me in order to help me get some supplementary income, because of course I work a full-time job in America. Of course I don't have enough money for rent on just one job. You kidding me? Come on. But it is my intention to be running a second campaign, and I do want this to be a long-form campaign. And I am thinking it is going to be, rather than doing 2 Call of Cthulhu, or again more D&D 5th edition and everything, which I have been running for some time but I'm kind of burnt out on, it is my intention to be playing some Vampire the Masquerade. So all of that preamble aside, it is basically just a way of me trying to explain that this is just me trying to get back into the headspace, trying to get back into the world of darkness and explore some of the interesting and also problematic entities that dwell within. This is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. Now, in that previous stream that I did of the tabletop game, I was actually using the soundtrack from the game we're about to play. This is Coteries of New York. I picked up a couple. I mean, basically, I think I have pretty much all of them. I have a large variety of different visual novels and various games that have come out over in recent and previous years, that are all set in the world of darkness. And I think it's going to be appropriate to... I mean, it's not just going to be World of Darkness. There are other things we're going to be playing down the road. But I think it is kind of appropriate that we have this be the first title that we mainly focus on. If only for a little while. So... but yeah, one of the things I was going to say was the soundtrack for this game, which I have not played. the entire soundtrack was something that I was using in the background for my tabletop game, along with the sequel to this, which is called Shadows of New York. Now, the only thing I know really about Coteries of New York, aside from the fact that this is a Camarilla-based game, and we'll briefly get into that before we begin, but the one thing that I do know is that in regards to the two titles, Coteries of New York and Shadows of New York, Coteries of New York is not quite as beloved. The hell was that? Boom. As some of the others. Anyway. So I don't know if this is going to suck, pun intended. But I do know that Shadows of New York is a follow-up to this, and so in spite of the mixed reviews that I've been hearing about this game, I do want to give this a real shot. So without any further ado, let us mix up our audio ever so slightly. And let us get into it. So, again, I'm just trying to adjust the audio so it's not going to be too deafening. I'm 99% sure that everything is now working and all that. So, please do tell me as we go on if there's any issues with the sound balance, the audio, or anything like that, if you would be so kind. And I think we are just going to get into it. So, enough of my face on the screen, and let us begin. So, let us begin. See, brand new game, no save slots right there. Oh, okay. So we get to choose our clan. So it looks like Bruja, Ventru, and Toreador. Okay, so what is there right up for Bruja? The Rabble Rebel against a power and... The Rabble... Oh, got me a bit confused for a second there. The Rabble Rebel against power and rage against authority. Did anyone actually try reading this out loud as they typed it? A seemingly insignificant man with significant ideas will join their ranks tonight. So that's another thing I'm aware of with these games. You don't really have character creation or anything like that. There are 3 already assigned characters that maybe you can change the name of, but maybe some of their personality or like specifics are already kind of locked in, which is fine. So he's a moody, rebellious dude who's wearing a suit and some paper clips for earrings. Badass. The Ventru. The aristocratic Bluebloods embody wealth, sovereignty, and control. A top-level corporate executive will join their ranks tonight. Okay. And then we have the Toreador. The Divas seek thrills of art, romance, and cruelty amid stagnant undeath. A tormented artist will join their ranks tonight. Okay. So, I'll be honest with you, the Bruja doesn't really do it for me. Toreador could be the pretentious art type and everything. I mean, I am the pretentious art type, so I think, honestly, what we're going to do is we're just going to go over to... I think we're going to go with the Ventru, which is something I never thought I would say. I'm just going to also tweak things over here ever so slightly. Just get ourselves all nice and comfy. And yeah, I think we'll go with the Ventru. Oh, and I just realized that you can't actually see some of the character art here. So, give me a second and let me try and move myself out of the way. Hopefully, I'm trying to think where a good spot to be would be so I'm not in the way. Maybe this is something I'm going to have to do pretty much every game. You know, this is the way of things. But I'm right down here and I'm looking at them. Okay, cool. Let's do it this way. So, I'd say we're going to go with a Ventru. Something a little bit different to what I normally play. So, Corporate Executive. The original name is Amanda. Yeah, I'm okay with Amanda, actually. Yeah, sure. That is not going to be an issue. So, let's see what kind of story Amanda's going to have. You know, New York taught me to believe in fate. Coincidentally, before we get into it, so these symbols here, so that looks like dialogue, that looks like a journal. And that looks like it's going to continue the story. Interesting. Yeah, you can't quite see it on the stream because of the way I've got the overlay and everything, but there's basically a little floating hand. If the bottom overlay becomes an issue, I can easily remove it. But again, we're learning. This is all new. So I don't want to click something and mess up, but yeah, so far this looks exactly like a typical Ventru setup. Oh, something I probably should have mentioned for those of you who aren't aware of it. There are different bloodlines, different types of vampire, or kindred as they prefer to be called in the world of darkness. The Ventru they're quite literally the blue bloods. They're usually, back in the Roman times and previously, these were the ruling classes, or people who were born to rule for leadership. You know, the senators, you know, the in modern days it's, you know, the business leaders, you know, billionaires, capitalists, that kind of thing. The Toreador, which was the last option, they are more, a lot of people just play them as artists, but their particular focus is their passion, or should I say their obsession with beauty, with creativity, with something unique. Whatever their obsession is, they are slaves to it. And the first one, the Bruja, a Bruja is all about, you know, rebellion, fighting the system, a righteous outrage against injustice, you know. So, I mean, these are some of the most common and most typical bloodlines, but again, I think Ventru, they're a little more interesting, at least in terms of like this type of story. I played the other types 100 times, so this would technically be my first Ventru playthrough. Well, anyway, enough of all that. I'm actually gonna see if this does anything. The beginning. Oh, so this is our log. Your introduction to the world of darkness begins now. And I guess this is where all of the text is going to be. And what's this? It's our dictionary. So the book symbol is our dictionary. And we haven't read anything yet. So be it. Okay, let us continue. The figure at the window, I'm assuming, is going to say, New York taught me to believe in fate. Had you asked me about fate back when I was human, I would have told you it's just superstitious bullshit. But we are all designers of our own destinies. That belief shattered when the richest woman in the United States, the actual richest one, not a face you could have seen in the papers, of course, sank her teeth deep into my neck. It happened in the very same place you're standing in right now, by the way. Fate? You decide. Please. There's absolutely no need to be hostile. Just listen a little longer. So we haven't been turned yet. It seems like we are literally just we're some executive, and this guy is basically giving us the whole vampire pitch. You see, my mistake was that I flew too close to the sun. It makes sense that my punishment was to never see its glow again. I was incandescent myself. I was hot shit. I had it all. Money, looks, confidence, connections, men, women, a career, and a spark in my eye. The one you need to be born with. And that's when someone far more powerful than me saw my radiance and thought, that will do. She robbed me of the light erupting from within and gave me a subtle, enduring gleam in its place. She decided that would fit me much better. She was a 9th generation kindred, just like you, an apex predator. She probably enjoyed teaching me the peak of human excellence, my real place in the food chain. It's such an eyesore when you look at some loudmouth blackguard and see them for all they really are. The temptation to teach them a lesson can be unbearable, right? Well, my sire's lesson was a lesson about fate, a message saying, you're eternally doomed to be at the mercy of your sovereigns. It almost drove me to destroy myself. What saved me was the ability to reinterpret her teachings. Hers wasn't a message of doom, it was a message of hope. Fate exists, and one can shape it if given the right tools. My sire didn't believe my tools were fitting for the job. She considered them toys, and me, just her amusing subject. Well, she's deader than dead now, and I'm still here, standing right where she stood when we first met. You might have wondered how I've learned about your arrival to JFK Airport. My answer is, of course, destiny. As luck would have it, today happened to be a day some of my associates were inspecting the coffins. Okay, so not only are we already dead, we're already a vampire and a Ventru, but it looks like, so this guy isn't our sire. We are not being turned right now, because it seems we're the same generation as the person who turned him. So if we're a 9th generation, this guy's 10th generation. For clarification, vampiric generation is basically how many generations you are away from the source. Most vampires, whether or not they'd, say it out loud, believe that the source of all vampirism to be Cain, as in that Cain. But that is a matter up for debate. So this is a guy who has basically, we're already a kindred, and this guy has plucked us out of our, coffin in JFK and had us wheeled up here. Cool. So far, so Ventru. Driving you here straight from the plane and having you wake up in such an unfamiliar place was a little desperate, and I do apologize for it. But it is so rare for you to visit New York. 3 times in the last 15 years, was it? And you're never eager to inform me you're here. I understand you still have that meeting on 53rd Street later tonight, so I'll provide a comfortable transport. I value our relationship very much, don't get me wrong. But it is precisely because I value it that I'm going to ask you to repay the favor you owe me. You're the only one I trust to do the job well, and without attracting attention. You might think I'm crazy, asking you to breach the rules of our society like this. You might think it's impossible to get away with it unpunished. but this is New York. And I don't know about other cities, but in this one, fate really exists. And right now, it's smiling in your favor. This is how it begins. Now, was that not even the player character that we were playing at? Was that something in the distant future? Was that in the past? It's... okay, I do not know. Your phone rings. It's your boss again. The setting sun that filled your high-rise office an hour ago is gone. The city looks like an ocean of light from up here, spreading for miles to the north. You pick up. You were about to call it a day. Forget about the world of fintech and decompress at home. No dice. One of the investors wants to meet you. His voice, as always, the perfect mix of authority and sleaze. He'll come by your office in an hour. You look at the clock. An hour? He's got to be kidding. Yeah, I know, but stick around. He's a heavyweight. You'll want to make a good impression. Fine. You grit your teeth a little. The boss hangs up. 2 hours. Might as well pour another coffee into yourself and figure out how best to use this to your advantage. You suspect everyone knows that no, you're actually not happy with your current position. That, in fact, you feel squished against the glass ceiling that comes with the territory. Sure, your idiot superior might have gotten the job only because he's the CEO's golfing buddy, but you're going to put an unholy amount of work into your advancement. Times were, you laugh off the idea of staying at the office until 9 PM. You had a partner to go home to, a nightly Netflix and chill ritual to perform, complete with pizza or a Chinese takeout. Ever since you moved up the ladder though, your hours have only gotten longer. Food? Mostly at the company cafeteria, sometimes takeout, always in a rush. You praise the heavens for your crazy metabolism and dread the day it finally decides to give up. Rest? At this point, the cleaning lady who takes care of your apartment probably spends more time in your bedroom than you do. You flash back to your boss quoting Shakespeare to impress his new, extremely attractive and uncomfortably young secretary. For some must watch, while some must sleep, so run the worlds away. Drinks? Mostly with colleagues, and they all pretty much hate you at this point. Another flashback. This time to the most profitable quarter in the company's history. Still, the board decided that layoffs were in order. Your boss didn't feel like letting people know in person, so he passed that privilege on to you. Gotta hand it to him, he always knew how to pick his battles. But maybe, just maybe, tonight is the night it's all going to change. You decide to play the good looks angle. Nothing too slutty, you leave your blouse slightly unbuttoned, check if your ass looks as good as you remembered in your pencil skirt. Mary says yes. It's not something you're proud of, but you've become too jaded to care. Knowing your luck, the investor is going to be one of two types. A self-obsessed Musk wannabe in his 20s, or a fat old pervert drenched in cologne. You hear the elevator ding. Time to get the show on the road. You take one final look into the mirror and fix your hair as the footsteps echo across the empty hallway. The man who approaches your office is not what you expected. He's slick, to be sure, but he seems a bit more refined than your usual company man. Expensive suit, matching tie and shirt, confident in his stride. Surprisingly good looking. Good evening. I hope this unforeseen visit isn't too much of an inconvenience. God, that voice. He's taken aback by how smooth and strong it is. and his eyes, steel blue, cold, intense. He's all business. Professional, treats you in a manner that's appropriate to your stature. When he speaks, he actually looks you in the eye and not at your cleavage. He asks some questions about your work, tells you how he noticed your input after talking to the CEO and the golfing buddy maybe, and he comes charmingly close to calling your boss an incompetent doofus. All the while, you try to guess his accent but can't quite place it. European, sure, but where from? I know I've kept you long enough, but would you indulge me and join me for a drink? Of course. For a minute there it seemed like he wasn't that kind of guy. What the hell? You go with it. Seems nice enough. Besides, it's not like you have other plans. The investor has a limo waiting downstairs, and the driver takes you to a high-end restaurant in Williamsburg. A seat is waiting for you in the deluxe lounge. It's just the two of you. You talk about this and that. Your companion seems to have a knack for history. So tell me, what would you do if you had full control of the company? You almost choke on your wine. This is your chance. You say what's been on your mind for months, but hide it behind a veneer of professional corporal babble. Refocusing, listening to your instincts for once, restructuring, kicking out your boss, aggressively pursuing new markets, getting the hell away from all these horrible people. He likes the sound of that. He leans forward, his eyes flash with intensity and something else. Strange emotion that wasn't there before. You'll do just fine. His words echo inside your head as you black out. You wake up, God only knows how much later. As you try to piece together what happened, you hear a familiar voice, the investor, or whoever the hell he is, talking to someone. You suddenly recall snippets, fragmented memories. His sapphire eyes intently locked with yours, his teeth suddenly longer and sharper. And something else. A feeling on your neck that takes you back to your last orgasm. Company trip to Florida. A sweaty room. The cutie from HR who doesn't work there anymore. And then darkness. Yes, I'm done here. Consider my debt paid. The investor pushes the other figure aside and walks away from the lounge, barely bothering to look at you. The door locks behind him. Some time passes before you find the strength to get up from the couch. You touch your lips. Blood? Did that asshole hit you? You try to stand up, but your head is pounding and your stomach is like a heavy knot pulling you down. You didn't have that much to drink. So spite your wine, this is bad. You frantically check your clothes. Pristine. Doesn't make any sense. All of a sudden, a feeling hits you unlike anything else you've ever felt before. You fall to the floor, writhing in an all-encompassing pain. Pain and hunger. Kind that makes your insides burn. The kind of hunger that cannot be denied. You try to calm yourself down with a breathing exercise they taught you at some bullshit mindfulness course. That's when it hits you. You're not breathing. And holy shit, your heart should be jumping out of your chest with that realization. But it's not moving. Not even a beat. The door unlocks. You hear a startled voice. A young man in a waiter's outfit, his accent thick with an Eastern European harshness, leans over and asks, If you are late, for a brief moment you wonder, the hell is he doing here? Everything is wrong. Then his smell reaches your nostrils. It's intoxicating. And everything feels right again. He holds out his arm to help you stand up. You grab it firmly with both hands, and then you bite down. You sink your teeth right next to the old school pin-up tattoo of Rita Hayworth on his forearm. It takes you a moment to process what you're doing. Part of you wants to break away, but a stronger voice implores you to keep drinking. One thing becomes clear. You're definitely enjoying this. He only struggles a little and quickly falls to his knees. You can see his eyes now, pale blue and confused. You only bring yourself to let him go once he collapses onto the floor. Your bite leaves a mess on his forearm. Poor Rita, all blooded, missing half her face. Wait, did you just drink this guy's blood? You spit out a piece of torn flesh. That's... why? Where? What was in that fucking wine? Barely able to focus your heart and your lungs still motionless, you reach for your phone and dial 911. 911 operator, what's your emergency? Ooh, first decision. Okay, interesting. Ooh, so none of these appear to be good choices. So, I don't think admitting we killed somebody is the sort of thing a shrewd business lady would do. My heart stopped. That seems a little bit too dangerous. I think I can't breathe is probably the safest option in this regards. I can't breathe. Ma'am, where are you right now? The door to the lounge swings open. The man who enters is not the one that brought you here, though there are similarities. He's tall, for one, broad-shouldered, handsome, dressed in an immaculate suit, but his skin is dark, and the look on his face tells you he's not here to negotiate a deal. He notices the smartphone in your hand. Pass me the phone if you want to live. The man's voice is persuasive, calm, but carrying clear threat. He's got the aura of a viciously efficient corporate shark. You find it hard to argue with him. Ma'am? Hello? I apologize for wasting your time. My new colleague got drunk and is now trying to impress everyone with her antics. Good night. He disconnects the call and places your phone in his pocket. For whatever reason, you can barely take your eyes off the stranger. As hypnotizing as his presence is, though, it is also highly discomforting. Good evening, miss. I am here to pick you up. So I'm just gonna head over to this side of the screen real quick, because it looks like it's probably going to be best if I keep the webcam over here, because I don't want to be covering up any of the beautiful freaking character artwork. So, but yeah, good evening, miss. I am here to pick you up. Who are you? I am your guide through this perilous night. The stranger approaches the waiter and examines his body. Critical condition, but he might live. Anyway, he then sets his sights on you. I know this is all new to you, but I've dealt with hundreds of strays like you, and going by experience, they tend to fall into two categories. First, there are the smart ones who carefully obey my every word and don't try to pull off anything stupid. I always get them where they need to be, safe and sound. And then there are the dumb ones. The punks who thought they could take me on. The wise guys who tried to contact somebody secretly and without permission. The troublemakers who tried to run off or make a scene. None of them got to their destination in one piece. In fact, most of them never reached their destination at all. His voice becomes slightly bored and monotone. You can tell he's given this speech before, likely dozens of times. So you'll see, while I genuinely consider myself pretty smart, I'm also a Mets fan. It's my one true weakness, one that inspired me to come up with a 3-strike system when dealing with pups like you. If you get on my nerves once or twice, I understand. Not all of us perform well in stressful situations. But cross me 3 times, and you're out. No excuses, no forgiveness, no mercy. As he's talking, he slowly approaches you, adding a bit of a theatrical swagger to his walk. Eventually, he leans in, deliberately invading your personal space. You realize it's a test. He's daring you to do something about it. 3 strikes, and you're out. Say, I understand, sir. Now. Every atom of your being screams for you to obey his authority. I understand, sir. Stick to that tone, and you'll do just fine. Moving on. Is there anyone you'd want to inform of your current situation? Tell them you're alright. He flashes his fangs briefly, and for some reason, the sight sends a chill down your spine. There is something very wrong about him. Oh, I don't know, maybe the fact that he's got fangs? Someone closest to you. There's no one. I don't have anyone. The stranger squints at you. No family. No lover. No friends. Nothing. A job. Your blank stare tells him the whole story. He immediately stops prying and gives you something even worse than a look of pity. A look of honest compassion. Well, that makes things simpler, but let me be crystal clear, just in case. From this point on, you are subject to different laws than the ones you grew up under, and you will be watched by many eyes to ensure these laws are respected. You are forbidden from letting anyone know you are still alive. You are forbidden from showing your face anywhere that they know you. If anyone comes looking for you, it is over for both you and them. Might have to bear with me one moment. Okay, there we go. Okay, so back over to number 7. Nope, wrong scene. There we go. That practice tone again. You put on your poker face and listen in silence. So unless you want your boss to end up at the bottom of the Hudson, I suggest you cooperate. I mean, I don't think we care, personally. Don't tempt me. He smiles, revealing his fangs again. There's something absolutely sickening about it. Suddenly, you feel overwhelmed by a sense of exhaustion and pass out. I would say this as well. What I'm going to do very quickly is we're just going to... I think the big boom sound is a little bit too loud. I don't want to, close the game there. Anyway, he smiles, revealing his fangs, and yes, you pass out. When you regain your senses, you find yourself in the stranger's arms. The man is holding you as you would a spouse who's had a little much too wine to drink. You try to break free, but when he holds you... You try to break free, but he holds you close and gives you a cautioning look. Only when you cease your struggling does he let you go. Only now do you notice the change in scenery. You find yourself in a fancy lobby, right next to the elevator. The place is virtually empty, save for a single concierge and some cleaning staff. Your companion gestures at the concierge as you pass, and he picks up the phone. The elevator arrives, the door opens, and the man motions towards the cabin. After you. Where are we going? To a safe place. That's all you need to know. Trust me, you don't want to make this difficult. Just get in. I'm gonna step inside the elevator. We're not a good girl, we're a patient girl. Going against your instincts, you enter the cabin. Smooth jazz is playing over the speakers as the elevator starts its descent. You're dazed, panicky, and locked in place. On the one hand, you find the stranger's presence oddly soothing. On the other, you can feel your body tensing up with stress. You can't help but think back to the young waiter, the doe-eyed look on his face, the confused look he gave you just before. Better not to think about it. Plus, you have other things to worry about, like the fact you're being kidnapped. The cabin door opens to the same garage you arrived at with the investor some hours ago. The man shows you a black Cadillac Escalade. I know what you're thinking. Getting into the car with some strange man. Boy, sure seems like a dumb idea. Maybe I can make a run for it. I might be able to lose him. So, let me be perfectly clear. Your best bet is to get in, relax, and enjoy the ride. The waiter. Do you think that waiter upstairs? Is he going to be alright? Yes. You look him in the eyes and can immediately tell he's lying. No more questions. Get in the car, please. We get in the car. Seems like the worst idea ever, but the man's made it very clear that you have no choice in the matter. Are you going to hurt me? No. Not tonight at the very least. Unless you make me. He takes a glance at his expensive-looking watch. Listen, you really need to quit stalling. We're on a bit of a schedule here. The sun comes up in about 2 hours, and I don't intend to be here when it does. The sun? What does it matter when the sun comes up? Ah, you really don't know, do you? Good thing I got here when I did. He opens the car door and gestures towards it. You see no point in delaying the inevitable, so you get in. The door locks behind you. The Cadillac is almost entirely dark. The side windows seem lightproof. The man gets into the driver's seat, starts the engine, and drives away without another word. Did I die? Depends on your definition of death. Listen, I realize you have many questions. Tomorrow you will get some answers. But tonight, you need to do what I say. And right now, I need some quiet. Please. You feel too confused to protest. You stay silent for the rest of the ride, even as more questions bubble up to the surface. One of them being, did you actually kill someone tonight? Staring out of the window, you find it hard to focus and quickly lose track of where you're headed. You can only tell you haven't left Manhattan. Another underground parking, almost featureless, empty. The car stops and the man opens the door for you. We're here. The stranger walks you to a nearby door. He opens it and motions at you to get in. Go on in. Make yourself comfortable. If you get hungry, again, take a look in the fridge. I'll pick you up tomorrow, and you'll get your answers. Behind the door is a small room. No windows, just a simple bed and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. A small fridge is humming away in the corner, accompanied by a rattling AC fan in the wall. You're leaving me here? That's it? That's it. For now, at least. Look, this room is your best chance of seeing another night. I realize you've been put in a problematic situation, and it's not entirely your fault. Cooperate, and you might still make it. You will learn more tomorrow, but for the time being, get in and get cozy. He gestures inside the room. Okay. You step inside. The stranger nods. Good night. He locks the door behind you. It looks very sturdy. You open the fridge. There's a single plastic bag there, filled with red liquid, no label. Tamala soup? If it was sick to your stomach, best to leave it for now. You lie down on the bed. There's a simple mattress on a metal frame. At least it's not too filthy. You think back to how this evening began. This investor. Is he friends with the dark-skinned stranger who picked you up from the restaurant? What happens now? Unable to relax, you spend an hour or so playing out various scenarios in your head. Eventually, you decide to give in and let exhaustion take over. Whatever tomorrow brings, you'd rather face it well rested. Plus, there's no way in hell your boss isn't going to notice your absence tomorrow. That and maybe some of the restaurant staff will feel a pang of conscience. Someone will notify the police. Someone will find you. Right? You flash back to the waiter's tattoo. The bloody Rita Hayworth winking at you over a pale mess of a wound. You did this to him. You bit him. Drank his blood. And it tasted good. What if you can never go home again? You are so tired. Your entire body tenses up one last time and, before you know it, you drift away into oblivion. You wake up. That in itself is a surprise. You barely remember when you drifted off. It didn't feel quite like sleep, more like plummeting into an endless void. You imagine that's how death feels like. The room is unchanged. The lamp is still on, the AC is still rattling, the refrigerator is still humming. You take a look at your watch. It's almost 9 p.m. You slept for 17 hours straight. Maybe you died. Your breath is gone. You feel no thumping in your chest. Does that qualify as dead if you're still conscious? You're not sure about that. But you are certain about one thing. You're hungry. And it's not your stomach rumbling, though. It's a need that starts somewhere in your abdomen and spreads to your chest, throat, and the back of your head. You open the fridge. The bag is still there. You take a closer look at it. If it is soup, then its color and texture are off. You pull the cork out, take a whiff. You recognize the smell immediately. Is it blood? Holy shit. There's no mistaking it. It's bagged blood. It's blood! This is a serious stream. The smell is faint, and you remember some situations in the past where you found it nauseating. But now, it's almost... No, not almost. It is enticing. Drink the blood. It feels wrong, but right now, there's barely anything in your life that doesn't. Hell with it. You pour a bit of the liquid into your mouth. It tastes like shit. It's coppery, thick, and clings to your tongue and the inside of your mouth like a film of dirt. You swallow hard regardless. And the taste is foul, but somehow kind of want more of it. As you take a second sip, sucking the blood out of the bag, you feel something pull on your insides. You double over. You're gonna barf. You instinctively cover your mouth, looking for a place to vomit. Before you find it, a dark red wave washes over your hands and fingers. It hits the floor, and I skipped before I could finish reading that. Whoops. You keep heaving for a moment longer. Nothing is coming out. Not blood, not bile, not even spit. But still something in your body wants to push it out. Push it all out. Every last drop. As you recover, trying to wipe droplets of regurgitated blood from your dress, you hear the lock click. See the door open. Standing there is the well-dressed stranger you met yesterday. Immaculate suit again. That predatory look, like a hawk on a hunt. Somehow more relaxed tonight. So, like a tamed hawk, maybe? Good evening. How was... He notices the spatter, your red hand, the sick look on your face. He barely contains a smirk. Oh, was the catering unable to satisfy your exquisite taste? Apologies. Offer him a drink. Can't tell me you can drink this. He takes the bag out of your hands and pours all of its contents into his mouth. He closes his eyes, theatrically savoring the taste. When he opens them a few seconds later, he looks sharper, energized. Not all of us are picky eaters. So, that is one thing I actually forgot about the Ventru. Yeah, the problem with the Ventru as vampires are, while they do basically believe themselves to be natural born rulers, leaders, and, you know, all of that jazz, one of their curses, their specific banes, shall we say, is they are very, very picky eaters. And we'll most likely get into more detail about what exactly Amanda's type is, but yeah, bagged blood is not gonna do it for poor Amanda. I completely forgot about that. This is gonna be interesting. Come on, we've got places to be. I should have some water and a towel in the back of the car so you can clean yourself up. The car is humming in the empty parking lot just outside the door of the cramped room you've spent the day in. The man motions to it, politely, but with a stern look on his face. We're gonna get inside the car. It's not like I have a choice, right? Correct. But your cooperation is appreciated, nevertheless. You take the back seats again. The doors lock. The stranger takes the wheel and starts the car. You drive in silence for a while. From time to time, you keep trying to catch glimpses of familiar streets or landmarks through the blackened windows, but it's of little use. The car is also soundproofed, so all you can hear is a bit of traffic humming and the car's engine. The driver doesn't say anything and seems focused on the road. You check the door handle. Yeah, the door is locked, alright. The piece of dark glass separating you from the front of the car looks sturdy too. There is nothing left to do but wait. You didn't have time to think about it before, but you realize now that you're hungry? No, not exactly. It's not a rumbling stomach that grabs your attention. It's a need. It starts somewhere in your abdomen, spreads to your chest, your throat, and the back of the head. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you used the exact same dialogue about 5 minutes ago, game. You become restless. This is essentially a kidnapping. Whatever this guy says about its purpose, it doesn't change the fact you're being held against your will, and you're not used to following orders when you can't delegate them to somebody else. You feel a need to get a semblance of control over the situation. So, you decide to prove yourself useful. I have a worthwhile skill set. Listen, I'm not actually going to not read out the basically, what we're selecting, because it looks like we actually have some decent dialogue that shows up there. Listen, I'm an investment advisor, and I have a lot of experience in fintech. Whatever your organization is, it might find useful. I don't even have an idea of what fintech is, and honestly, I don't care to find out. There's a short pause. I'll be frank. Currently, you're in no position to offer anybody anything. The sooner you accept that, the better. Ridicule his lack of ambition. Big words from somebody's dedicated errand boy. I wonder if you've ever achieved anything. You push the right buttons. He gives you an absolutely furious stare through the rear view mirror. For a second, you spot a crack in his professional demeanor. You don't know anything about me. You have no idea where I'm coming from, or where I'm headed. For a few seconds, he quietly fumes. Your attitude won't help you make any friends, and in your current position, you definitely need some. Consider that, preferably in silence. That dull hunger strikes again. Powerlessness hurts. You're used to people listening to you, or pretending to care about your demands at least. The driver doesn't play that game, and it annoys you to no end. It takes you another 20 or so minutes to get to your destination. As the door opens, you try to get your bearings. You're still in New York, that much is certain. Queens, maybe? After me. No sudden movements, please. You approach a nice-looking building that houses a 2-story gallery called the Art Hole. 2 large men in suits flank the doors on both sides. They give your companion a nod as you approach. Prompted by the stranger guiding you, You walk inside. The gallery is full, which is unusual at this hour, to say the least. About 24 faces fill the showroom, and a number of waiters navigating the gathering, serving drinks, all of them beneath the guests' attention. The visitors are well dressed for the most part, but it's unclear what they have gathered here for. Nobody seems to be particularly interested in the art pieces on the walls, and the atmosphere is polite, unnaturally so. Many guests turn to look at you and the stranger who brought you here. Their glances are varied. You see open contempt on a few faces and animated interest on others. Most of the eyes in the room calmly observe you, as if wishing to appraise your worth. This reminds you of your company meetings. You, the only woman in the room, silently judged not on her merits, but her standing on the list, passed in clandestine email threads between your male co-workers. Until HR found out, that is. Not the most pleasant experience, but there's no denying it taught you resilience. When others would cower, you now straighten up. When others would turn their gaze, you meet the eyes of the gallery's guests with confidence. Good evening, Kadir. And to you, child. The noble, cold voice takes you out of your head and back to the situation at hand. The gallery, crowd of strangers, you being brought here against your will. For what purpose? The room awaits your response. Good evening, miss. You are addressing the Prince of New York City, Elaine Panhard, child of Michaela. Thank you, my sheriff, but I'm capable of introducing myself. She is somewhat plain-looking and doesn't seem to possess a great deal of charm, but still, the entire room is intently focused on her voice. She has influence over these people. That much is clear. You may address me as Prince, child. I realize your introduction into unlife was abrupt, and I understand your sire left shortly after. The rules of our society dictate I punish you both for this transgression. There's a murmur of agreement, maybe, which can be heard from the gathered audience, but I am willing to listen to what our loyal sheriff has to say about the circumstances of your embrace first. She said she's going to listen to the sheriff, but I mean, I genuinely don't understand. I'm confused. What are you saying? I think it shall all become clear momentarily. You were pushed headfirst into a world you have not realized the existence of. But before you can partake in it, there needs to be a trial. You are about to be judged by the Court of New York City. Kadir, please tell us how you found this fledgling, and what happened on your way here. Court? Prince? Is this some kind of secret society make-believe? A dusted informant, who has chosen to remain anonymous at this time, tipped me off about a suspicious kindred appearing in one of our domains. Upon investigating, I found them gone, but this fledgling remained in their place. A reservation made in the private lounge of the patrician suggests this one's sire had plenty of resources to spend. However, they are apparently also well connected. I lost track of them. Despite some reservations, she offered little resistance last night and cooperated on our way to the safe house. I was pleased to not have to force her compliance. Opening the door to the safe house tonight, I was greeted by a most disturbing sight of her drenched in regurgitated blood. Apparently the bagged supply we kept in the fridge was not to her liking. The remark elicits a contemptuous chuckle from one of the gathered guests as they note the remains of the blood on your skirt. It was not an elegant sight, but that hardly matters, I suppose. Moving on. We had a quick chat, but wishing to appear her post-haste, I urged her to join me, which she did without struggle. A pleasant departure from my usual routine, I must say. During our drive here, she showed me her fangs, metaphorically speaking, posturing as if we were equals, insulting me when it didn't work. I refrained from causing her physical harm, but I expect her ego might still be a bit bruised. He looks at you and flashes a nasty smile. The story ends with us arriving at Elysium tonight. All eyes are on you again. You take a special interest in one of the faces. It's a beautiful woman with curly, almost blood-red hair and a dress to match. You see her whispering to some bespectacled man with an absent-minded look on his face. Who is she, you wonder? Thank you, Kadir. I take note of this fledgling's behavior and will take it into consideration later. She turns her attention to you. First, there is the matter of your sire. The person who brought you where Kadir picked you up from last night. Who were they? Okay. An entrepreneur, acquaintance of my boss, I think. Good looking, pale blue eyes and some grey in his hair. Charming, abusive, cold son of a bitch. You feel tired and angry. This whole situation, spending the day in some underground parking lot, having to bear the looks of a room full of strangers. It's almost too much to take in stride. There's no reason you should take it all in stride. But you do. Because if there's one thing your professional career has taught you, it's that. All because of that asshole, whoever he was. He never even gave you a name, a card, nothing. Well, Kadir, does that sound familiar? No, it does not. At least, not familiar enough. I will continue the search after we are done here. He talked to somebody at the restaurant. Oh, the man. He talked to somebody at the restaurant before he left. I can't remember what he said. But he wasn't alone. Maybe that's a lead you can follow. Did he now? That is interesting. I do hope the proprietor won't stay mad at us for losing one of his staff. It's almost like he knows the waiter's fate is still bothering you. He takes pleasure in pointing it out. Thank you for that observation. I will investigate it later. What shall I do with the fledgling, my prince? What is your recommendation, my sheriff? The traditions are clear. Thou shalt only sire another with the permission of thine elder. If thou createst another without thine elder's leave, both thou and thy progeny shall be slain. I am ready to fulfill my duty. Stay your hand for just a moment longer, dear. I wish to consult my counsel on this. Make sure everyone is in agreement. Of course. He seems strangely relieved. The prince leaves the main showroom, and a handful of people follow her out. You're about to ask this Kadir what all that talk of traditions and councils was when the red-haired woman approaches the two of you. Sophie, Sheriff, I was wondering if I could have a word with the fledgling. Excuse me, need plenty of water. What for? She lowers her voice in response. Come now, Kadir. We all know that what the verdict will be. Let me speak to them. You might not have to stain your hands tonight after all. Her words grab his attention. His face is hard to read. It's like several emotions are struggling for domination. Anger, sadness, hope, gratitude, resolve. I'll go get my sword. That's not the least bit concerning now, is it, kids? He steps out of the room, the way you came, and you are left in the showroom with the woman in the red dress. She takes you aside, and the eyes of the remaining guests follow you. Sexy ASMR gulping. My apologies. Yeah, I did not think on about the fact that this was going to be a visual novel and I would have to do so much talking. But there you go. Well then, fledgling, you're in quite the pickle. What was that about? Yeah. Did I hear that right? What did he say about a sword? Your hearing isn't faulty. We only have a short while before the prince hears her counsel out, and then Kadir returns here with his blade. So listen, please. Last night, you became a vampire. Wait, what? Let's be honest, how would you not realize that that's what's going on at this point? Come on now. Oh yes. I'm well aware of how ridiculous that sounds. Is a reason why we have these nicer words for it. Kindred, being embraced, having a sire. The fact remains, the beings called vampires, you're looking at them. They're us. You glance around. Some of the guests still occasionally looking at you, commenting on you in hushed tones. Many of the patrons are pale. Really pale, and most of them hold glasses of wine. No, it's not wine. It's not the right thickness, and it's not the right colour either. You're trying to come up with something sensible to say, but you're drawing a blank. Makes a morbid kind of sense. You drank blood last night, there's no denying it, and your breathing has not returned. Your heart remains still. A vampire. Two voices in your head start battling for supremacy. One of them slowly begins to put everything that happened since yesterday together, coming to a conclusion that no matter how insane it might seem, nothing but what she's saying makes sense. The other voice just keeps saying, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" on repeat. You're surprised? This is often how it plays out by design. Kadir deliberately keeping you in the dark and all. If we do nothing, you'll be cut down as sure as day follows night. But I'm here to offer you a chance, a way out, under one condition. I will take you under my wing. If you're lucky, the prince will be in a good mood tonight, and Kadir's compliments about your behavior won't influence her judgment. This society values docility. She might agree to this, but only if you swear fealty to me. I'm not making this offer lightly. As your patron, I will take responsibility for you. Your actions will reflect on me. If they reflect negatively, well, I will make sure you face the consequences. How will you convince the prince? Ah, you're saying the prince might have other plans for me. Or will you offer to convince her? You'll see it yourself, hopefully. Know this. There are certain traditions and a history of our society in the city that I can tap into. My word might not carry that much weight, but it's not easily ignored either. Steps and hushed voices can be heard from the side room. It seems the prince and her council are returning to the showroom. Kadir appears from downstairs as well and starts walking towards you. When you hear the verdict, ask to be spared. I will intervene. Remember my condition. She flashes a heart-melting smile towards Kadir, who does not smile back. The sheriff's immaculate suit is now complemented by a curved, oriental-looking metal scabbard, fastened with a colourful sash around his waist. It would look vaguely ridiculous if it wasn't surprisingly intimidating, first and foremost. Kadir takes his place next to you and observes as the prince takes center stage again. Loyal kindred of the New York City Camarilla gathered here tonight. I have made my decision regarding this fledgling. Their behavior since being embraced has been disagreeable, and that does not bode well for them becoming a valuable member of our society. You are all keenly aware that these nights we need to close our ranks and trust the wisdom of our elders and their traditions more than ever before. As our trusted sheriff pointed out, there can be only one course of action. Or fuck you, bitch. Although I acknowledge some of my council's divergent opinions on this. She takes a look specifically at one of the people who left the room before, a somewhat plainly dressed, shy-looking man whose skin has a somewhat healthier tone. He bows his head in deference. I hold the final authority over this fledgling's fate, and I declare that while their embrace might be the sire's responsibility, in their absence, it is their progeny that shall be punished. The sentence is final death, to be resolved presently. Kadir? You hear a scraping sound, and see that the sheriff has unsheathed his curved sword. It's a beautifully detailed blade, which you expect must be worth a small fortune. Its apparent sharpness makes you freeze up. 2 outs. Bottom of the 9th. His quiet mumble is audible to nobody but you. As his eyes meet yours, you note just a hint of sadness in his countenance, one that quickly vanishes to give way to grim determination. And he is out to bat. You will not get another chance to speak up. I ask for mercy. You make your choice. Spare me, please. Don't make me beg, goddammit. Prince, if I may ask you to stay the sheriff's hand for a while longer? Kadir looks at the prince, awaiting her response. The sword is still hanging above you, threatening to fall at a moment's notice. Is there something you'd like to say, Miss Langley? Yes, if I may. At first, the prince looks somewhat annoyed at the distraction, but she stays quiet for a while, measuring the mood in the room. The bored elites suddenly look at you with aroused interest, some of them dismayed at not seeing the bloodshed, but all intrigued by the unexpected twist. The prince nods. Well, let's hear it. Sophie takes a few steps forward. All eyes are on her now, but Kadir's heavy hand on your shoulder makes it clear you won't take advantage of the distraction. My prince, while the traditions are clear, I believe that the proper context should be observed in addition to the letter of our laws. This fledgling is a burden, but with proper guidance, they could become an asset to our domain. And I understand you are volunteering to take this unruly child under your protection. Yes, I'm willing to give them a chance and prove to the entire domain that they can adhere to our expectations. I will take nothing less than their full cooperation, naturally. Whispers can be heard again, an incredulous voice or two, a hushed, just behead the fucker, some suppressed exclamations of surprise. Silence! I ask all of you to make a note of this moment. I might be persuaded to bend one tradition in this child's favor, but another will have to be enforced even more firmly in its stead. Until thy progeny shall be released, thou shalt command them in all things. Their sins are thine to endure. Are you certain that's a responsibility you wish to shoulder, Miss Langley? I'm willing to guide this fledgling and add a valuable ally to our sect in a time of need. Yes, but I would like to receive the right of destruction over them, if it pleases you. Ooh. Tricky. Tricky. They like it when you're docile. Keep your mouth shut. It's clear tensions are high. It feels surreal to listen to strangers discussing your death, or second death apparently, and keeping silent. You decide it's for the best to let Sophie handle this alone and not interject. The prince looks at you as if weighing your worth. She takes another good measure of the room before she speaks again. I shall grant what you ask. Let it be known, Sophie Langley of the Clan of the Rose will become this fledgling's patron. They shall be considered like sire and child. Miss Langley will take full responsibility for them, and I grant her the right of destruction if she sees fit to use it. Let my intentions be clear, however. If I am to turn a blind eye to one of our most important traditions on this occasion, I expect it to be beneficial to the Camarilla. Substantially so. I hope you find this verdict satisfactory, Miss Langley. Of course, Prince. Thank you. Very well. She turns to you. What is your name, child? Amanda, Prince. She nods. Welcome to the Camarilla, Amanda. Now, this evening proved to be even more eventful than I anticipated, but with the fledgling's fate decided, I believe our meeting here can conclude. Thank you all for appearing on such short notice. Give my regards to those who couldn't make it. Kadir, a moment of your time before I let you return to your duties? Of course, Prince. He shoots you a side glance that doesn't leave much space for interpretation. You will be watched. You will be judged. And if need be, you will be punished. The two of them leave the gallery. Well, Amanda,
I think we've both already managed to significantly improve each other's evenings. But let's keep the ball rolling, shall we? I think we should have a toast to a new fruitful partnership. She raises her hand at one of the well-dressed concierges who have now reappeared in the showroom to refill the guests' glasses. The conventionally handsome man approaches with I actually can't pronounce that, a carafe of red liquid. The memory of throwing up in the safe house is still fresh in your mind, and the idea that it could happen again is almost enough to reject the drink altogether. There's no denying you want it. You need it. I remember what Kadir said about your misadventure before getting into the car. Some of us have more delicate palates than others. Try to take a small sip, s'il vous plaît. He pours it into 2 tall glasses. You can barely wait until he hands you the drink. Your attention is fully on it. The fact that it's blood, you're certain of it, doesn't faze you this time. It's difficult to take just a sip, even though the taste is as foul as before. You're tempted to down the whole glass in one go. You wait before taking a second taste. You're glad you did. A feeling like heartburn signals that you can't keep it down. You spit it back inside the glass. Sophie looks on, intrigued. I'm not surprised. NYC caterers have very bourgeois ideas about what good blood should taste like. Well, you just need to keep trying. At Sophie's request, the concierge serves you 3 other variants of blood. The first 2 are as horrible and indigestible as before, both ending up back in the glass within moments of tasting them. Before the 3rd try, you're almost ready to throw the glass at the wall in frustration, but finally, this one's different. Instead of mud and decay, surprisingly rich bouquet of tastes. You feel blissfully at ease. Sophie takes notice. Ah, there it is. Jacob, would you kindly let us know who the donor was? Leave the bottle, please. The concierge nods and leaves again. You take another sip, and another. You empty the glass. The dull feeling in your stomach and head starts subsiding, but you still want more. Sophie pours you another glass and refills hers. She takes a sip. You have a curiously specific taste, Amanda. Is it the clover notes, the traces of caffeine, or that bittersweet aftertaste of melancholy? You taste nothing of the kind, but it doesn't matter. It's tasty, but not as delicious as it was last night. Not as intoxicating. It manages to silence the hunger somewhat, though. Drinking blood puts you at ease. It's a strange realization. The man named Jacob comes back with a small card and leaves it with Sophie. She takes a quick look and passes it on to you. Somebody's medical details. An office worker, male, Caucasian, 32 years old, blood type ABRH+, blue eyes, brown hair, no history of substance abuse, New Jersey native. Might one of these details be what makes the difference? Well, now that we've picked the right bouquet for your palate, these documents should be useful in identifying your exact taste. Should they be ORH or Joy Z Boys? But I believe you have more questions, no? Perhaps we should start with those related to sustenance. How much? Yeah. I feel this hunger constantly, and also a burning, aching void where a soundtrack should be. So it's very quiet. I feel this hunger constantly. How much do I have to drink to make it go away? The sad reality is, it will never go away. No matter how much you drink, you will always be tempted to have more. Unless you consume someone wholly to the last drop, paying for temporary relief with their life. But that is a one-way road to losing your humanity. Best start by just taking a single sip from a vessel. Be prudent. Hot, fresh blood will be more satisfying than almost anything they serve in a fancy glass, but it can make you more voracious. As to how much you should have, well, it depends. If you're frugal, you can survive many nights without a single drink, but it's risky, and it'll tempt the beast. That is part of our curse. Tomorrow, I shall take you hunting, and we shall explore this topic together. The blood you're having tonight should be enough to keep you happy, for now. The beast you mentioned, is that a metaphor, or... Oh, it's quite real, although not in a strictly physical sense. It lives in all of us. Our nature and hunger manifest. Those more religious among us are connected to the biblical Cain, the rage of the first murderer, cursed by God, seething in all his descendants. I, however, am a child of the Enlightenment. Not that it makes my struggle any easier. I have to be wary, like every other kindred in the city and beyond. Individual kindred each have a unique relationship to their beast. What yours is going to be remains to be seen. But you do need to keep it under control. Each outburst endangers not just you, but also the masquerade. The concierge returns, asks for permission to intrude, which Sophie gives with a polite smile, and leans in to whisper in her ear. You note that the gallery is now almost empty. I'm being told the gallery is just about to close, but we still have quite a lot to discuss. We'll go to one of my apartments. My jalopy is waiting downstairs. Yep. The smile she puts on could tip any negotiation towards her favor. Her words are like honey. She makes it impossible to take your eyes off her. You are under her spell, momentarily. Sophie leads you to a luxurious silver Rolls Royce and invites you to sit in the back. The chauffeur, a broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, middle-aged guy, starts driving immediately. Where did we leave her? I believe I started telling you a bit more about our customs. You've heard the prince refer to our traditions. The chief among them is the masquerade. As you might have gathered from us assembling at a niche gallery after closing time, our comings, goings, and doings tend to be somewhat secretive. We do not advertise our existence. We allow myths and modern fiction to morph and muddle the facts, so the vast majority of kind, we remain bedtime stories and pop culture icons. Say, is that one television show about a vampire angel still popular? You shake your head in confusion. She shrugs and continues talking, looking a little bit more dejected than before. Well, our clandestine ways help us remain safe, allow us to explain away the occasional trip-up to the irrational mind of the 21st century humanity, and dictate much of our interactions with mortals. Okay. My career, I'm 99% sure at this point my career is in the shitter. And as for a risk, I would say that's an obvious question, so I'd say the smartest question would be about the driver. So if it's such a secret, And I'm guessing your driver is a vampire too. Oh dear, Gregory here? No, he's not a vampire, though he is a loyal servant, and as such is trusted not to spill our secrets left and right. You'll realize with time that such help is welcome. Gregory watches over me during the day hours. Sun burns our kind, and that's why we take our rest when it rises. It's more akin to being dead than asleep, as I'm sure you've already experienced. But not everything you've heard about vampires is true. Some more folk-related threats are just legends, or occasionally a minor nuisance. Garlic, running water, even religious symbols don't repel us. Unless the wielder is uniquely pure and godly. Stakes through the heart, though. That's something to avoid. They don't destroy, but they do paralyze us. Well, that's just another reason to have somebody like trusty old Gregory making sure you're safe when you drift away. We have many enemies, and they often know their advantage lies with daylight. Your driver must know who he works for, right? I mean, he's right there. Surely he can hear everything we're saying. How can you trust him to keep your secrets? His loyalty is assured by partaking of my blood, but his loyalty extends beyond just this dependency, as I'm sure he'll be happy to tell you if you ask. It's a nice change of pace. Our little sect supplies social interactions aplenty, but it doesn't really encourage counting on someone. Support given in exchange for favors, that's more like it. Long-term solidarity does occur in the Camarilla, but we are a very politicized organization by necessity. Loyalty is to your sire, to your prince, and to the sect. When you're in Elysium, like we were tonight, the sect can appear to be a monolith. Reality is more complex. Outside social gatherings, shady deals and a quid pro quo mentality reign supreme. She seems to be lost in thought and falls silent for a while, leaving you to ponder all the things you've learned tonight. It still feels absolutely unreal, but as piece after piece of knowledge falls into place, the image becomes almost like an entire logical jigsaw puzzle. Whatever you wouldn't believe on your own, you've witnessed. Many questions swarm your thoughts, but the one you keep returning to is what your place in this new reality should be. The car stops, even the city, in front of an old but well-renovated apartment building. We're here. Would you like to see your lodgings? After all that talk of servants and safety, I'll be disappointed if there's nobody waiting there to make me coffee in the morning. We can discuss finding you a Jeeves at some time in the future. For now, rest assured that this place is safe and adapted to our needs. As you'll see, come upstairs. She leads you through a small hall with a night guard who greets Miss Langley with a good evening, and you take the stairs up to the second floor. Sophie opens the door to room 209. Inside are all the amenities you could expect from a modern apartment, and some you wouldn't have deemed necessary. Just the previous night, including thick blinds on the windows. The back room has a comfortable looking bed and a thick steel door with several sturdy looking locks with no windows. Well, how do you like it? This is great. Thank you. I'm glad. Make yourself at home. Tomorrow, I'll take you hunting and discuss the blood in more detail. I'll let you get comfortable. The keys are by the television set. I'll come pick you up tomorrow night. use the back room for rest. You can lock the doors just in case. It stings a bit when she leaves. It's like the room suddenly became a few shades dimmer. You inspect the kitchen, hoping to find something to drink. Nothing. No regular food either. Feels strange that Kadir could be a more thoughtful host than your new sire, even if only in that respect. Briefly wonder if the sheriff might have had a hidden side. With nothing left to do, you lie on the couch with a TV playing in the background for company. Columbo reruns, Kojak reruns. President of the United States got himself into serious trouble again. President of the United States got himself out of trouble again. Pundits start yelling over each other about things that seemed a little bit less insignificant just 2 days ago. You start drifting off, reflecting about another night of confusing conversations and worldview-shattering revelations. How many more before you finally understand what happened to you and what you're supposed to do now? You keep coming back to the life you left behind, the people you should contact, the things you want to pick up from your apartment. You wonder when you'll have a chance for either. You start to feel the same tiredness that made you drift into a cold sleep last night. You settle in the back room. The bed is comforting. The lack of windows, less so. You leave the light bulb on. Looking at it, you realize it's the closest you'll ever come to staring at the sun on a breezy summer day again. A wave of melancholy overwhelms you. A few minutes later, your consciousness fades and you take the plunge into darkness again. Sinking, 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 sinking. So I saw this move here. And we have a map of New York. So I'm just going to check our journal real quick. We've got a whole bunch of information here. Now, I, as someone who have played these games a couple of times, not this one specifically, but I'm familiar with the World of Darkness and everything. I kind of know pretty much most of this stuff already, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to very quickly go through everything here. Actually, I don't see the sheriff. Oh, the sheriff is right here at the bottom. So we'll start at the sheriff and we'll work our way up to the top. The sheriff ensures that the traditions and the decrees of the prince are obeyed, hunts down violators, and delivers just punishment. In the case of minor violations or known enemies of the Camarilla, the sheriff is usually authorized to act as both judge and jailer and executioner. But when it comes to greater offenses, they will deliver the accused to the court to be judged. The Elysium, a place where vampires may gather without fear of harm. Court functions in Elysium are strictly kept apart from mortals and surrounded by secrecy. But the Elysium building itself could be a public museum, a gallery, or club. Berghain is an anarch Elysium. The Louvre is a Camarilla Elysium. A sire, a vampire's begetter, the kindred who created them. A sect, a group of vampires arguably united under a common philosophy. The two most widely known sects currently populating the night are the Camarilla and the Anarch movements. Now, we've not really heard anything about the Anarchs just yet, so, you know, maybe a little bit of a spoiler there. Kine, a term for mortals, largely contemptuous. The phrase kindred and kine refers to the world at large, everything. The traditions. The 6 traditions form the core framework for governance among the kindred. The first tradition, the Masquerade, thou shalt not reveal thy true nature. The second tradition, the Domain, thy domain is thine own concern. All others owe thee respect while in it. The third tradition, the Progeny, thou shalt only sire another with the permission of thine elder. The fourth tradition, the Accounting, those who create are thine own children. Their sins are thine to endure. The fifth tradition, Hospitality, honor one another's domain. Without the word of acceptance, thou art nothing. The sixth tradition, Destruction, thou art forbidden to destroy another of thy kind. The right of destruction belongeth only to thine elder. The Masquerade, the habit or tradition of hiding the existence of vampires from humanity, designed to protect vampires from destruction at the hands of mankind. The Masquerade was adopted after the medieval Inquisition claimed many kindred unlives. Kindred, the Camarilla term for vampires as a whole, or a single vampire. According to rumor, this term came about in the 15th or 16th century after the Anarch Revolt. Cain, a mythical figure considered to be the first and most powerful vampire. Some vampires refer to themselves as Cainites, members of the race of Cain. The Beast, the inchoate drives and urges that threaten to turn a vampire into a mindless, raving monster. Inchoate, that's a new one on me, I've never heard that one before. Vessel, a source of blood for sustenance or pleasure, primarily mortal. The Hunger, the urge to feed. For vampires, the hunger replaces all other drives with its own powerful call. Prince, a vampire who has claimed a given expanse of domain as their own, generally a city, and supports that claim against all others. The term can refer to a kindred of either sex. Fledgling, a newly created vampire, still under their sire's protection. The Camarilla, a major sect of vampires devoted primarily to maintaining the masquerade through influence and manipulation of mortal society. Okay. So, yeah, we're basically in the beginning still. Okay. So I think there's nothing else I can really do. I think we're going to rest. Hunger is at the heart of a vampire's existence. To ignore it is to tempt the beast to take over in its desire to feed. The overindulgence in feeding may threaten the masquerade or staining what humanity you have left. In Coteries of New York, having a high hunger is indicated by a progressively thicker bloody frame around the screen, like the one you see now. Okay. As your hunger grows, so does this indicator. Your hunger may increase when you call upon your vampiric powers or when you need to mend your wounds after a fight. When your hunger reaches the maximum level, you will receive a warning after you complete a piece of the story. Ignore it at your own peril. Some choices might only become visible if your hunger is high enough. Similarly, high hunger may block off some choices, as you'll be able to see after pressing continue. Okay. Blocked. Okay. I see. Interesting. To decrease your hunger, you'll need to feed. Whenever you see a feeding opportunity, you can take the risk to hunt and slake your hunger. You will need to keep the hunger at bay if you are to uphold the masquerade and survive the nights that await you. Okay. You open your eyes. The bed isn't warm. The room is filled with artificial light from the ceiling. The solid metal door is closed. Normally, you'd stretch for a bit. On some mornings, you'd probably throw the quilt over yourself and snooze there for a moment longer. But that was before. The way you woke up now, you are fully conscious. No grogginess, nothing weighing you down. Just the nagging need at the back of your head. Hunger. Not as severe as the last time, but unmistakably there. You get up and open the door to the main room. A digital clock on the TV shows you the time, 9:04 p.m. You walk over to the blinds and retract them cautiously. The only light coming in is New York City's artificial nighttime luminescence. So that's what your waking hours are going to look like now. You miss the sunlight already. You're seriously considering just walking out of the apartment and figuring this all out by yourself, but then you come back to the memory of Kadir's exotic sword being raised in the gallery. Maybe sticking around isn't that bad of an idea after all. You keep jumping channels for around half an hour and then switch to streaming services. Almost as if the universe had a sense of irony, you catch True Blood in the flood of recommendations. The doorbell rings. It's Sophie. Good evening, Amanda. Sleep well? Like a baby. What a delightful choice of words. So appropriate. A newborn kindred, lost and confused in the night. You made the right choice yesterday. I can teach you many things about yourself. Your blood, its desires, and its power will begin tonight. You're hungry, yes? I'm sure you are. Our kind always is. And there's only one remedy. The blood. The drinks we had yesterday at Elysium are not the usual way you slake your thirst. So tonight, I will assist you in your first foray into hunting. You'll need to learn to sense the kind of blood you desire, to understand how you can use the kind's vulnerabilities to your advantage. Well, I'm ready to learn. Let's get started. Such eagerness, or is it just your hunger making you impatient? You'll find that drinking moderate amounts of it regularly will keep the hunger and the whispers of the beast away. You might think yourself monstrous, but there is a balance to be found here. The kiss gives the kind pleasure. You might remember this from your own embrace. Some can even become addicted to the sensation, but if you do it right, they tend to misremember your feeding. After all, vampires do not exist. They're myths, fairy tales, and pop culture mainstays. Correct? She gives you a sly, knowing smile. That's why the masquerade is so important, and even more crucial when you feed. How do you avoid being seen while feeding? Well, you isolate your prey, or you choose the right circumstances. People tend to avert their gaze when they see a couple intertwined in public. Love bites are easy to explain away. Some of us keep willing herds, or even just individual kind who desire the kiss. That comes at a high risk these nights though, so I wouldn't recommend it to a young kindred like yourself. Feeding from the same area repeatedly can be dangerous, but by branching out, you risk the ire of other kindred on whose domains you trespass. Lucky for you, NYC is more forgiving in this regard. New York is in somewhat of a unique position. Many of its neighborhoods remain contested or unclaimed. The reason for this is a lesson for another time, but keep the following in mind. Take opportunities to feed when they present themselves these upcoming nights. As long as you can hunt cautiously and respect the masquerade at all times, you should be fine. To wait, I want you to join me for a trip tonight. Come downstairs. Gregory is waiting for us. The busy street fills the air with traffic, noise, pedestrian chatter, and a mix of smells that disorientate you momentarily. These warm bodies contain what you want, what you need. You catch yourself. Did you really just think of these people as mere sources of blood? It takes a nudge from Sophie to break your train of thought. Her driver opens the door for her and then tips his hat to you, gesturing to the back of the car. The car casually joins the somewhat thinned New York traffic. It's still busy in a way only one of the biggest cities in the world can be, but compared to the daytime commute, it's a pleasant drive. You barely have the time to gather your thoughts and formulate new questions before the car comes to a stop. You're among the tall skyscrapers that make up Manhattan's iconic skyline. Come, Amanda. Park the car, Gregory, will you? The driver just nods, and Sophie gets out. You join her, and the two of you walk through the glass doors together. Then, take the elevator up. You first notice an empty stage with the instruments of a string quartet still in the back. Then take in the few dozen chairs in front of it. The concert seeming concluded, the patrons, smartly dressed and posh, have spread out all over the hall. Sophie strides confidently inside, produces an invitation from a purse that she flashes in front of a security guard. You follow close and are let through without issue. Let's start easy. A social setting like this one would usually prove quite challenging to an inexperienced kindred, but consider this evening a small gift from your patron. I'm hoping to procure for you a willing vessel. Just remember what I told you about small sips. The one I have a soft spot for. Oh, this one I have a soft spot for. Don't damage her. Now, let's see. Here he is. She notices somebody in the crowd, flashes a heart-melting smile, and suddenly even you feel drawn to her. You haven't thought about it before, but it's laid clear before you in this moment. Sophie is beautiful. Just looking at her is a privilege. Just being with her makes you feel elated. Everybody in the crowd, but especially the man who's almost tripping over himself to reach her, clearly agrees. Edgar, I'm so happy to see you. How's your daughter? Is she with you? Oh, there she is. Julie, my girl, come over, please. There's somebody I'd like you to meet. The young woman who walks across the hall can't be more than 19 years old. It's clear from her mismatched earrings and the partially faded purple hair dye that she doesn't fit this crowd. Julie, this is Amanda. I think the two of you should get acquainted while I talk business with your dad. Awfully boring stuff, I assure you. I'm positive you'll like each other. The girl gives you a shy smile and nods towards the balcony stairs. You follow, somewhat unsure what it is exactly Sophie expects you to do. You reach a secluded space from which the entire lobby is visible. All eyes are on Sophie. They listen intently, then laugh when she does. Julie saves you of trouble of figuring out the next step. If you're with Sophie, then I guess that you know. She puts her wrist to her lips and gives herself a theatrical nip, then looks to you, embarrassed, but also hopeful. What? Are you into this sort of thing? She blushes, looks down at the floor, and nods. Could you? I mean, if you'd like. Miss Langley tells me She swallows hard and avoids your eyes. That'll taste nice. I think it would be rude to turn her down, now wouldn't it? Take her forearm in your hands. A quick around confirms nobody's watching. No security cameras cover this area. You bite down. Gently. It's surreal. She's just given you her blood of her own volition. How is this possible? What about the masquerade? You need to ask Sophie. You tear away from her. A brief convulsion shakes you. A smell. It's a smell. It's not right. The temporary feeling of bliss the girl felt when you bit her is gone in an instant. She's disappointed, annoyed even. She looks at you, unsure of what's the matter. Oh, come back, please, just have a little more, just a little bit more. The very thought makes you want to throw up what little of her blood you've tasted. You shake your head. The girl sniffs, starts crying, wipes her face into her jacket sleeve, and walks down the stairs to the hall. The crowd around Sophie disperses slowly, looking at her now. Only some residual awe hangs in the air. Yeah, she's pretty, maybe even beautiful, sure, but not your type. What came over you before? You walk over to her. Edgar, dear, it was splendid talking to you, but we need to get going. Give Julie my best wishes. Come with, Amanda. Gregory is waiting for you out front. It's only in the car that Sophie addresses you. So, how'd it go? I tried, but couldn't do it. I couldn't stand the smell or the taste. Curious. I consider Julie's blood to have one of the most exquisite and unique bouquets in this city, and trust me, I have refined taste. She almost sounds like she's offended. Well, if at first you don't succeed, perhaps you need a change of pace. Time for the next stop. Training wheels off this time, Gregory. Flushing Meadows, please. The driver takes the car over the Williamsburg Bridge. You settle your thoughts. Those people back at the hall, they're all entranced. Even I was under your spell. What was that? She smiles with satisfaction. That old trick? Just the blood doing my bidding. We all have our talents. Some of them come from the legacy we inherit from our sire. Others can be learned with experience. I can sway people or make them fear me. I see more of the world and in greater detail than some, Kindred. I can will my body to move with unparalleled precision and grace, and more. All these skills make me who I am. They also help me hunt. How exactly do I use these talents? You will the blood to do your bidding. Many times, you'll find you do these things intuitively, almost passively. But making an entire room focus their attention on you, that is tempting the beast. Always keep the masquerade in mind, however. It's all fine if you can disappear in plain sight or command animals with your mind, but save those overt talents for the right place and time. It only takes you half an hour to reach the park at this time of night. Both you and Sophie leave the car, with Gregory left behind again to find a parking spot and keep an eye on the car. Sophie seems deep in thought. She takes in the surroundings with a dreamy gaze. The sky is surprisingly clear tonight. The stars just barely visible in the light-polluted aura of the city. I feel like having a snack myself. I'll be by the fountain. Go look for somebody to your liking. See what effects you can achieve with your blood. But only pick one victim. Just one. And then come back. Seeing how she seems not altogether here right now, you decide to leave Sophie to her own devices and seek out your prey. From here, it looks like you have a few choices. Just taking a stroll around the park and finding an isolated jogger or someone like them could work, but focusing on one area might work better. The New York State Pavilion might work as a secluded spot. There's a skate park nearby, and worst case scenario, there's bound to be some unfortunate wino around. Or maybe the tennis courts nearby. There's light coming from there and somebody might still be playing a late night match. They won't be alone, but they might be tired and let their guard down. As these scenarios play out in your mind, you realize you're planning how to assault a stranger in the middle of the night. It's a weird way to be, but now the familiar hunger prompts you to act. Now, the decrepit pavilion, were we talking about homeless there? I don't think that's what I want. I think searching for a victim around the park seems the best option, wider net and all that. You start walking. The park's many avenues must hold a good spot or two for a predator like yourself. You pass 2 soccer fields and circle around where the Fountain of the Planets once awed visitors with its spectacle before coming across an opportunity. A woman, small duffel bag on her arm, is making her way through the park in a hurry. She doesn't seem to have noticed you yet. You think back to what Sophie did in the hall. How she managed to focus the attention of the entire gathering on her. That might be a tall order for you, but a single person could be doable. For a moment, you're thinking how an old guy in a hood... Wait. I was confused. I was reading for a second. For a moment, you're thinking how an old guy in a hood should appear over your shoulder and saying, "Use the Force, Amanda." Feels ridiculous. But then something stirs within you. There's a confidence there, an allure that you might have had before, but one that's increased manifold in this moment. You catch the woman's eye. She flashes an unsure smile, almost in spite of herself, as she passes you by. Let's see. Hey, you. She's tense, gripping her bag close but attentive. Her eyes lock into yours. The slight smile is there again. Yeah? What is it? Almost intuitively, you close the distance between you. She can't look away. She's unprepared for what follows. In a swift move, you grab her and bite down. Her surprise resonates in her blood. Hot, excited, fast flowing. She tenses up, then relaxes. The duffel bag hits the ground. Bliss. Footsteps. You let go of her. She drops to the ground, barely conscious. A hooded man is looking menacingly at you. Do you think you're doing barging in on my turf like this, Lick? Didn't mean to trespass. Sorry. I'm going. Too late for that, friendo. You want to leave him here in one piece. You talk candidly. I know what you are, so you can shove that masquerade and misdirection up your ass. I'm not sure why I'm defaulting to a Scottish or a Geordie accent in New York, but hey, you know, when in Rome, I guess. Now, better tell me what you're doing before my posse shows up and we beat it out of you. I came here with Sophie Langley. She's my patron. Doesn't ring a bell. Sounds fancy though. He licks his lips, exposing his fangs and looking at you voraciously. A nervous tick or an attempt at intimidation? I wonder, what'd Callian do to you if I brought you in, huh? Break your shins, leave you out to be kissed by the sun? Ooh, concrete shoes maybe. He's old school like that. Enough's enough. You won't be intimidated by this asshole. Leave now. His countenance changes. A cruel beast one moment, a humble pup the next. He walks away, just like that. How did you do it? Not wishing to tempt fate any further, you return to the Unisphere, looking back over your shoulder to make sure you're not being followed. Two figures are visible near the sculpture, a man and woman, tangled in a passionate embrace. No, not exactly. It's Sophie, feeding. This whole scene is set up so that it looks like a couple getting intimate in public. She pulls it off like she's done it 100 times before. It occurs to you that she probably has. The man is unsure on his feet as she lets go of him and leads him towards a nearby bench. Noticing you, she whispers something in his ear and leaves him. Her driver appears from behind a tree. Well, Amanda, how did it go? You're about to answer when the same figure as before emerges from one of the alleys. He looks at the three of you, and a predatory smile creeps onto his lips. You screwed dumb fuck. You think you can mess with my head and get away with it? Think you'll be safe with your friends? Well, I've got friends too. He makes a motion to shout, but two things happen almost at the same time. First, that feeling of warmth and beauty emanating from Sophie flares up again, entrancing both you and the hooded thug. His shout comes out as a weak, confused squeak. Second, Gregory produces a wooden stake from a holster under his jacket and slams it into the thug's chest. Just like that. In a few seconds, the posturing vampire is down on the ground, paralyzed. I see you've made a friend, Amanda. Curious choice of company, I would say. Who is he? He said something about presenting me to somebody named Callahan. Ever heard of him? She looks shocked for a split second, then recovers her regular countenance. Yes, I have. This hoodlum is Anarch, then. Curious. Corona Park has not been claimed by any kindred, last I checked. let's go into the car. We'll put him in the trunk and present him to Kadir tomorrow night. I'm sure he'll be delighted to make this unbound's acquaintance. Gregory carries the staked vampire and dumps him in the car's trunk like a mannequin. It's a strange sight, and you're quite happy you're not in that poor fucker's shoes right now. It's almost surprising that you can get away with just casually throwing a stiff in your car and driving away, but then you remember that Sophie has been doing this far longer than you have. Still, the nagging thought that anything you did tonight could have been recorded on a CCTV camera or picked up by a rando with a half-decent smartphone and streamed online fills you with dread. Hunting and using your abilities is a dangerous business. It's clear that this whole being a vampire thing has about as many caveats as it has perks. You're taken out of your headspace by Sophie's voice. I'll pick you up tomorrow night, same as tonight. I have some business to attend to at Elysium, and I expect you to accompany me. Plus, our friend in the back needs to be properly introduced to Kadir and the Prince. I'm sure he'll have some interesting things to say to the court. Her voice is cold, cruel, and nothing like the enchanting personality she showed at the gallery earlier tonight. Sophie is clearly a woman of many faces. Do we show empathy? Empathy does not seem like a smart thing. So Amanda is a businesswoman. You don't show empathy to the opposition when you're with a manager. You ask clarifying questions of management. What's going to happen to him? Now, the usual, I imagine. Interrogation by Kadir, probably in the basement of the gallery. Quick trial with the Prince in attendance if she's there tomorrow night. A swift execution as the verdict. This all sounds eerily familiar to you. And you can't help but feel a pang of guilt when you think about what awaits this guy tomorrow night. You haven't told me how your hunting went. Getting the hang of it, I would hope. I think I am. Yes. I'll cope. I'm glad. She doesn't question you further. She seems distracted. Not all there. Her thoughts drift and the car remains silent until you reach your apartment. We'll pick you up tomorrow evening. Good night. And just like that, without any further courtesy, Sophie leaves, driven to her apartment by Gregory with a body in the trunk, right in the middle of Manhattan. Did you cross paths with situations like these in the past, unknowingly? What other secrets did you pass on the streets without knowing their true nature? Your haven is just as you left it hours ago, although the sun won't come up for some time. You feel tired. You learned something about yourself today, and it's going to take time to process. You're not in the mood for television, and the few books on the shelves in the apartment are either in languages you don't speak or sound like a boring read. Nothing left to do but rest. You settle in the back room, lock the door. A moment of hesitation, but then a decision. This time, you turn the light off. You think back to Julie. How many people in this city know about this vampiric society? How many are willing accomplices in sustaining it? And the thug you met in the park, if he's not Camarilla, then what is he? Are there independent vampires? How does that work? More questions. You begin wondering if there's ever going to be a night where you can start crossing them off the list instead of adding to it. You close your eyes. You sink into the now familiar void of nothingness. It greets you with open arms, like an old friend. Okay, I think that that's a good point to leave that there for now. Again, not as long a stream as I would have liked. Again, running a little bit late. Had a couple of different things I needed to do. Plus, a couple of things did pop up midstream where I do need to take care of them. But yeah, so far, I am actually rather enjoying. Let me just boop us over here. So far, I'm actually enjoying what I've seen of it so far. It's not bad. Again, there are certain points where there's a lot of, like, no pun intended, dead air, where there's very little audio going on. But honestly, not too bad. Not too bad. It's definitely a good introduction to the Camarilla and how, for want of a better word, dickish they can be. And it's definitely a good vibe check / introduction to all the basic beats of Kindred Society in Vampire. The one thing I will say before we wrap up is my personal introduction to Vampire the Masquerade was a little bit different than what Manda's was. I actually became aware. Well, I was aware of Vampire the Masquerade for years. Late 90s, early 2000s. Everyone knows it from mainly like the LARPing scene and all the, the satanic panic, stuff that people were going on about in the news cycles. But the main thing that I got me into this would be LA by Night, which was a live streamed game. It was basically Critical Role for Vampire the Masquerade. And that was in the late, I would say, 2014, 2015 that started. I could be mistaken. I've slept since then. And that was the introduction to a couple of people who I'm a really big fan of now. B. Dave Walters, all the people in that particular show, and of course, the storyteller, Jason Carl, and everything. I would strongly advise watching, first couple of episodes of LA by Night at some point. Very interesting stuff. The main thing I will say is, instead of this story, which is focused on the Camarilla, LA by Night instead focuses on the Anarchs, the Unbound. And it's a very different perspective on how these very different societies of Kindred operate. So unlike most people I would say a lot of people kind of consider the Camarilla to be the default faction. In my experience, it's been the other way around. I came at it from the viewpoint of the Anarchs as the good guys first. So it's kind of interesting when you start to see all the different perspectives and you start to realize that there isn't so much a good guy, bad guy situation. It's more a bunch of bloodthirsty monsters that are only interested in themselves. But we will get to that in a future session, I think. So thank you so much for your watching tonight. It's been an interesting first experience, and I'm looking forward to returning to this in the very near future. I want to say it might be Wednesday when we stream again. I actually did have a schedule on Blue Sky, as I mentioned, but unfortunately
Probably going to have to change pretty much everything. I will be updating the Twitch page though with a more consistent schedule in the very near future. But in the meantime, it has been a genuine pleasure, and thank you all for joining us on this evening. Be safe and be well, and have yourselves a wonderful evening. Good night.